Captains of Industry, brought to you by Airtel.
Welcome back to Captains of Industry. The man in the hot seat tonight is the CEO of Forevermark, Stephen Lussier. And before the break, of course, we were talking about the launch of Forevermark, and we are going to see the first store launched in South Africa. Why so late to come to this country?
Yeah, you know, it was important for us to get to South Africa, you know, in part for emotional reasons. South Africa is the home of De Beers, and we wanted our brand Forevermark to be available to people in South Africa. But when we started, you know, with launching and rolling out Forevermark, it was a pretty difficult time in the world. You remember back to 2009, there weren't many people who thought, oh, this is a good time for a new luxury. So we started in the Far East, particularly in Hong Kong and China, because the environment there was still strong. And it's a lot easier to start when you have some forward momentum and enthusiasm. So that's where we started. You know, we've got to South Africa pretty quickly. We've only started in America this week, and we're going to start in South Africa in a couple of weeks' time. So it's amongst the early adopters, but we're really proud to be able to bring, you know, where the diamonds start from here in South Africa, to bring the brand back.
So looking at Forevermark, less than 1% of the world's diamonds eligible to be a Forevermark diamond, right? And I know that the promise that you obviously give is basically an inscription invisible to the naked eye in each diamond. It's beautiful, rare, and responsibly sourced. But is it accessible to the average person out there? Yeah,
it is. You know, it's not the cheapest product in the world, but you know, diamonds are special, and the Forevermark are special diamonds. But in developing the Forevermark concept, we didn't want it to be so exclusive that it was only available to the few. Because we know people, you know, if they're getting married, it's not only the wealthy who get married. You know, we all get married, and we want people to be able to access that. So, you know, for us, it's focusing upon this issue of beauty. You know, regardless of the size of the diamond and the price, and obviously you can spend huge amounts or lesser amounts. The key, though, is that that diamond to you is precious, and our promise is that that precious diamond is, for its size, amongst one of the most beautiful in the world, and you can be proud to have it. So, you know, it again reflects the relationship people will have with diamonds. They're all precious if they're given to mark an important event. So we take as much care, you know, with a fifth of a carat or a 15-point diamond as we do with the 15-carater.
What actually differentiates a normal diamond from a Forevermark diamond? And is it just really the brand? I know that you focus on the 4 C's, which is cut, clarity, color, and carat weight. Yeah, no, it's all about beauty. And you know, the 4 C's are important. They're created by De Beers, so obviously we think they're important. The 4 C's were created by De Beers,
yes,
is that
indeed,
correct?
Yeah. And they've been an important foundation to understand value. But they're not the whole story. And this is really where Forevermark comes to bear. So we look beyond the 4 C's. You know, I can show you 2 diamonds. They can both have the same certificate saying they have the same 4 C's, and one of them you'll look at and say, wow, that's beautiful. And the other you'll look at and say, well, that's okay. And what is it? It's tiny little details that make the difference between a diamond that really has the fire and life. So we select individually each diamond before we inscribe it with a Forevermark to make sure, you know, not only is it of the right quality, but it's got the magic, the beauty that when you wear it, you know, not only in the store, but 2 years later when you look at it at your finger, you say, wow, that is really amazing. So we go beyond the 4 C's to pick the most beautiful. And then the second half is this concept of responsible sourcing, which I think, looking forward, is going to become very important in the world of luxury goods.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned responsible sourcing. We know the Kimberley process has been implemented. We know that conflict diamonds, blood diamonds, have also been under the spotlight and perhaps created a dent in demand. I'm not really sure. Perhaps you could add a bit of clarity to this. But given the fact that De Beers has been around for so long and is the world's greatest and largest diamond producer, what is your sense on this, and how has the environment changed?
Yeah, I think if we start and step back and say, you know, luxury goods in general, historically, people didn't ask many questions about their origin. They just focused on the brand and the product quality. But that's changing, and it's going to change a lot more. People who buy expensive things want to feel completely comfortable with owning and wearing them, and that the environment around them, the people who see them, are going to think that's a good thing that they're wearing them. So while the IP, the Kimberley process, is important. To me, that's sort of a minimum standard. You know, it's one thing to do no harm, and that's very important. But I think people will want more in future, and they'll want to know not only did it do no harm, but that actually it did good. And so the Forevermark is much more about proactively saying, what's the assurance that we can give you with this Forevermark, that your diamonds, all the way in their journey from the mine in the first place through being cutting and polished, and all along that process, these diamonds have made a positive contribution, first to the communities and the nations where they come from, then when they're cut and polished wherever in the world, that's a good environment, people are well paid for the work, the working conditions is something we'd all be proud of. And I think that will differentiate in future very strongly between diamonds without the Forevermark, nothing wrong with them, but the diamonds with, you're able to be particularly proud of as a consumer. De
Beers, in a sense, has also been caught in the crossfire with regards to conflict diamonds. During that period, what was your sense? Did you want to look further into De Beers' role? Do you think that it just tightened up efficiencies within the business? And because it's been around for so long, I'm sure it wasn't completely isolated from conflict diamonds.
The conflict diamond era fundamentally was one of the things which fundamentally contributed to the change in the entire De Beers business model. Some time ago now, but it doesn't make it any less more fundamental. Historically, De Beers would mine its own diamonds and then buy diamonds on the open market from around the world and then resell them on. And clearly, in an environment where conflict was taking place, even if it only represented, I think at its peak 4% of the world's supply, one diamond in our distribution system taints the whole lot. So we changed our model and stopped and literally ceased a whole area of activity and focused on only selling diamonds from our own mines where we know precisely what's happened to them along the way. So it was a fundamental change. And then the second part, obviously, was to work with governments in a way we hadn't before to develop and introduce the Kimberley process, because it was important that consumers had confidence that the industry as a whole, together with governments, was taking steps to keep those diamonds out of the legitimate channel. And in a way, the Forevermark, to me, is a leap past that to a stronger promise to those who are particularly interested.
And also quite an interesting turn of events. Recently, Anglo-American agreeing to buy the Oppenheimer family's 40% interest in De Beers, and a $5.1 billion deal potential. It hasn't gone through as yet. I know that the government of Botswana might want to increase its stake to 25%. A family that has been in the industry for over 100 years. Should we be sad about this news? What is your sense? I mean, are you feeling a bit emotional?
I mean, it's an emotional moment in many ways. It's an end of an era. Plus, because I've been at De Beers a long time, I've worked very closely with Harry Oppenheimer in the first instance, and then Nicky and Jonathan. And, they were great supporters and great business colleagues. So it is sad, but on the other hand, Anglo-American, has been our major shareholder. They've held 45% of De Beers since 2001, and before that, Anglo and De Beers were linked. So Anglo is not like a new company. They are very involved in our business. They've been involved in it and approving our plans for a long time. So, it's largely to us business as usual, because we know them very well. They know us well. We're going to integrate well.
So no changes in marketing strategy or strategy as a whole?
No, Anglo have been well involved in approving our business plans on the board. It doesn't make it not sad, but we're focused obviously on.
Have you had any conversations
business
with Nicky Oppenheimer with regards to the sale of their stake?
Do we spent some time with Nicky and Cynthia Carroll from Anglo-American just this week in South Africa at our leadership conference, and clearly it was a very difficult decision for Nicky. He's emotionally and has been attached to De Beers.
So then why sell?
Well, that's a question you have to ask. You have to ask Nicky, not me. Obviously, he's got good reasons, and the family as a whole, I think, there are obviously some benefits for them to diversifying their holdings. But Anglo has been part of us for not since 1926. So.
Long-standing relationship, clearly.
It is pretty much business as usual for us.
On to more important matters. How many diamonds does your wife have?
You know, I don't know whether it's the upside or the downside of working for De Beers, but she probably has more than she would have had otherwise, for sure. You know, diamonds are an addictive thing if you have them. You're never satisfied with just one. You know, there's always more ears or wrists or necks, and it goes onwards. The good thing for me is when I panicked on Christmas Eve, I could ring downstairs and say help, and never go wrong, because you know, you give a diamond, there's only going to be one response, and it's going to be good. So she's got enough for all the kids' wives in future.
Stephen, also tell us, what else do you do apart from, you know, looking at all things that shine and looking for faults in most precious stones?
Yeah, you know, it's something. I spend so much time on an airplane. The one thing I hate to do when I've got all my free time is travel. So you know, I've got, despite my white hair, I've got a young family. I've got 3 boys between the ages of 8 and 14 who become pretty absorbing on the weekends, and you know, we love to do all things sporty. So together we ski in the winter. You know, we sail in the summer down in the Mediterranean. We play tennis all the time, and now it's cricket. Very difficult for me, cricket and rugby, because growing up in America, you know, I played baseball and football, and I'm having to learn to bowl, and I'm having to learn the rules of rugby to play with the kids. But we're pretty active. I think it's what happens with 3 boys in a family.
Absolutely. Do you take your work home with you, and are you very engaging with your children with regards to your day-to-day
You know,
dealings?
I'm pretty disciplined. No one's perfect, but I'm pretty disciplined about it. I think a lot because I travel a lot. So, you know, if you're away a lot of the time, when you're away, you're really working, you know, 20 hours a day. So when you're back, you want to make sure on the weekends, you know, you try not to open the briefcase. I'm pretty good, and you know, the BlackBerry is probably my curse. But
absolutely, mine too. Aspirations for the future, Stephen. Is there anything in particular that you want to do apart from heading up Forevermark?
I mean, I think the future is so exciting for diamonds, and I get so motivated by working with such a fabulous product. You know, that really excites me. I think that Forevermark has so much promise to offer to consumers around the world. That, you know, where are we now? Well, we're big for a jewelry diamond brand, but still small in the world of brands, and I want to make it the premier diamond brand in the world.
Fantastic. We have to leave it there, Stephen. Thank you so very much for joining us.
No,
Great to have you on
thank
the
you.
program. On that note, we've come to the end of this week's edition of Captains of Industry. Thank you very much for watching.